but this is the one in particular that has the tornado warning that has been issued by the National Weather Service. That is until 10:15. So let's jump a little tighter on that. That's in areas around between Hockley and Cypress. If you're in those areas, you need to make sure that you are in a safe space. This is a storm system that's been moving at about 15 to 20 miles an hour. And the bigger threat we've seen most of the night tonight has been some heavy rain that's been falling from all of these storms, to the point where we've been dealing with some flash flood warnings and also dealing with the potential for some street flooding. That may be what we're seeing out there right now. So let me zoom out just a bit and let's time this storm system out as we get an opportunity to see what we may be, who may be impacted next by the next, let's say, 15 to 20 minutes. So that's basically right around the Cypress area as you go from not only there, but then down towards Jersey Village. This is, these storms have been moving from west to east, as I mentioned, with the cold front itself. So if you're just joining us here, this is meteorologist Justin Stapleton. We do have a tornado warning, what is called a radar indicated tornado warning, meaning that we don't have any confirmation of anything on the ground yet, but it has been a very active night across much of the area. In fact, I'll zoom wide out here and get you a sense of what we're seeing with this cluster. And this is part of the cold front that has been slowly working its way into the area. Most of these storms have been dropping upwards of 2 to 3, 4, 5 inches of rain in some spots, especially earlier this afternoon and this evening, where we had a flash flood warning down around Channelview. Right now, most of the action that we've been seeing over the last 20, 30 minutes, if you joined us at KPRC 2+, right at the top of the hour there at 9 o'clock, we were looking at showers and thunderstorms that were blasting their way up across Lake Livingston. Had a severe thunderstorm warning there. That was allowed to expire. New severe thunderstorm warning, that goes until 10:15, and that's for areas right around Huntsville. Huntsville's been hit already with an additional 2 to 3 inches of rain. And then, of course, we've been talking about, as we came out of the air here about 4 minutes ago, that tornado warning, that goes until 10:15. Now, again, that is a radar indicated tornado warning, meaning that there has been some signs of rotation within the cloud itself, no actual tornado on the ground. And generally, this is what we'll do. They just sort of err on the side of caution just in case anything tries to make it to the ground. One of the reasons why is because at nighttime here, obviously you can't see them. A lot of times they're wrapped in the heavy rain, which is what we're seeing as well. Further to the south, down around Columbus, we've been dealing with some flash flooding where they have seen upwards of 5 inches of rain so far. So this is our cold front moving through. It will likely take a good chunk of the next 2 to 3 hours for it to continue to move south. In fact, let's go a little further to the south and west, and then we'll jump back on that tornado warning, and we'll take us right up to the top of the hour here for KPRC 2 News at 10. We have a flash flood warning that is just north of Columbus. That's for areas that have picked up about 4 to 5 inches of rain. And right now you see that big cluster between Sealy and Columbus. Let me back out so you get a sense of where that is along I-10, north of Eagle Lake. And that is going to continue to pound southward towards Eagle Lake. And eventually what we'll be looking at is that pressing its way in towards portions of Wharton and also greater El Campo and Iago. Now, not only that, but notice we've got these showers to the south that are starting to build in as well. None of these are severe, thankfully, but an indication that as this front moves in to where those storms are, we will likely be looking at a potential for some heavy storms to be pressing its way through the area. So that is another thing that we'll watch over the next hour or so. But of course, the biggest issue that we have right now is what we're dealing with, which is the severe thunderstorm warning and, of course, the tornado warning. That is until 10:15. As we said, that is a radar indicated tornado warning. Let's jump back over to our velocity, and you really pick up the spin here. This is, I've got it highlighted, and you can see it between Waller and Jersey Village there. Let's step over and show you this as well. So does this mean that we will see a tornado form from this on the ground? Not necessarily, but if you look at the very end of that loop, you see how the green right there sort of shoots into the red, and the red shoots into the green. So you've got these crisscrossing winds. That's what creates what we call wind shear, and that's one of the main ingredients that you have to have in place. Now, fairly broad, that's a good sign. And I say, why is that a good sign? Well, it means that maybe the overall system of the storm is sort of rotating like this, but it's not a tight rotation. A tornado, you'll see a very tight rotation within the center of that. I wouldn't be shocked to see if there is something trying to lower from the cloud, but obviously this time of night, we don't have access to be able to see that unless you can see it within the lightning flashes itself. But still, a very dangerous situation nonetheless. So anywhere from right around Cypress down towards Jersey Village. If you're in those areas, need to make sure that you take the storm very carefully, and you are under that tornado warning until 10:15. So basically for the next 15 to about 20 minutes as we're getting ready to approach the top of the 10 o'clock hour here. Let's go back and show you the details on this. As we said, this is our tornado warning that goes until 10:15. Not only that, but the other issue here, let me take off all of these warnings here so that you get a sense of what we're looking at. The amount of lightning that's pounding across the greater Cypress area towards there in Louetta, right across 249, as you go from 290 to 249, and then sliding southward there across the Grand Parkway. That's where we're seeing the heaviest showers and thunderstorms, and where the greatest amount of lightning is, which wouldn't shock me that there could even be some pea-sized hail within that storm as well. And that may be what we're seeing to the north here. There's our other storm. This one is a severe thunderstorm warning. Notice that's for the entire city of Huntsville, greater Huntsville area. And that goes until 10:15 as well. So we could be talking about dime-sized hail. I believe I saw from the National Weather Service that they've been watching that storm system very carefully. So we've got 4 or 5 areas here across the region that we're watching very carefully. We'll continue to do so. Not only that, but of course we have this area of flood advisories. As I've been saying earlier this evening, many areas to the north of greater Houston here have picked up anywhere from around 3 to 4, 5 inches of rain. And so these storms are only moving at about 15, 20 miles an hour max. And so as long as they continue to keep that slow roll, we will likely see a chance for more street ponding and certainly street flooding in some areas as well. And I'm actually just looking at the chat from the National Weather Service here, and it says that the velocity, basically what they're looking at when they look at their velocity product, which is this right here, they say that is getting rather impressive. And in fact, we're starting to see potential for this storm that may be tightening up just a bit. We'll have to watch this very carefully. In fact, let's switch that over to one of our other radar products there. And if we zoom in on that, notice that, yeah, we've got this area just south of Waller. This is what we're watching very carefully. This one here has a potential that we could be looking at some sort of formation, something that may be trying to coil up there. I don't necessarily know that that'll be the case, but nonetheless, that's where our biggest area of concern would be, is anywhere between where 249 out towards the Grand Parkway, just north of Jersey Village, and just south of Waller. So basically around the greater Cypress area. It's 10 o'clock. It's meteorologist Justin Stapleton. If you are joining us here for the 10 o'clock news, we'll continue to get you going with that, but we have an active tornado warning, and it's that area that I've highlighted right there until 10:15. And in fact, that is one of about a half a dozen severe thunderstorms that we've been watching for a good chunk of the night tonight. Here are the details on that severe thunderstorm warning. That goes until 10:15. Now, again, that is a radar indicated tornado warning, so that is not something that says that there is a tornado on the ground. A radar indicated means that there is enough rotation within that radar that they are going to be watching it very carefully. Went to an active tornado warning about 10 minutes ago here, and that's when we jumped on KPRC2 and KPRC2 Plus to give you an idea of what we're seeing. So we'll get to more of what's happening with the news here in just a bit as well, but I did want to make sure that everybody is aware that this is just one of about 4 or 5 big storms that we are watching along this line. If we go to the north, notice we've got the same story up around Huntsville. Severe thunderstorm warning there. I'll jump in a little tighter on this one. That goes until 10:15. That one also has a potential to see up to dime-sized hail. I've been looking at from the National Weather Service, and this is all part of a system that's dropped anywhere. If we look at some of these rainfall totals, that they've dropped anywhere from closer to about 2.5 to 5 inches of rain in some spots. And in fact, if we do a quick tally where we're seeing just south of Schulenburg there, that's 6.5 inches. North of Columbus, where they've still got that active that active flash flood warning, notice that has 5 inches. And then, of course, if we look at some of these other areas here as well, earlier this evening, we saw around Channelville 2.5, up towards Livingston, they've picked up close to 3 to 4. And then we have the same story as we go across portions of Northwest Harris County, right around the greater Cypress area, where we're talking about anywhere between 4 to 5 inches of rain. So this is kind of what it looks like as we back things out and give you a bigger sense of what we're seeing. We do have a couple of active severe thunderstorm warnings, a tornado warning as well. All of these will be something that we'll watch over the next 2 to 3 hours as we roll through our coverage here. So this is the main active system. This is our tornado warning. just to give you a sense of what we're seeing out here. This goes until 10:15. Again, as I've been mentioning, this is a radar indicated tornado warning, meaning that there's not one on the ground, but we have been seeing some very strong signs of rotation within this storm. This is anywhere for folks around the greater Cypress area, just if you're just south of Hockley. If you're in Jersey Village, heads up, this likely will be headed in your direction here, probably within the next 10 to 15 minutes. These storms have been moving about 15 to 20 miles an hour. They've picked up a little more speed since we saw earlier this evening, and that severe thunderstorm warning, which is attached to that exact same storm system, goes until 10:15. We have on the backside of that, Hempstead on down towards Waller, where we've been seeing some heavy rain, anywhere from 3 to 4 inches. And then, of course, this is our velocity product. If you missed it, we went on the air here. Velocity basically tells us the directions of the wind. So the green wind is coming in towards the radar site, which is down near Lake City, by the way. And then the red wind is going outbound. So what you look for within this is you look for any kind of tightening or sort of a swirl between the two, that kind of what we call wind shear. Two winds moving in different directions can create spin in the center. And that's where we likely at least had enough confidence from the National Weather Service. So they said, let's go ahead and issue that warning just to make sure that we know exactly what we're seeing out there. And that's something that we'll watch very carefully as we move on through. Otherwise, we have more flash flood warnings out across the area as well. That's anywhere from right around Columbus, south of Schulenburg. All of these will continue. And if you go further to the south, we've still got showers and thunderstorms that we're going to keep a watch on as well. This is anywhere from around Danbury down towards Lake Jackson, Sweeney, Bay City. None of these are severe, but they are going to hit that line. And we'll likely start to see places like Rosenberg, Sugar Land, Mission Bend, or Missouri City, I should say, and then over towards West Park, where we will likely see some of those potential for up to 2 to 3 inches of rain as that whole system moves on through. And that's what we've seen across the area so far. Some of these rainfall totals, 5 inches, 5.5 to 6, 7 inches as you get south of Schulenburg. And of course, some of these bullseyes there moving into northwest Harris County and right around Cypress, where we've already picked up an additional 2 to 3 inches, and that's close to 5 at this point. So it's not everywhere. So as long as that line keeps moving, we should be looking at a better forecast. However, we've been watching some of our traffic cameras most of the night here. North Freeway at Shenandoah Parkway, that's still pretty wet. So even if you're not in a severe thunderstorm warning, these storms will be very wet moving through, meaning that the roads will stay fairly slick. You saw the lightning strikes in the background. That's another reason why you need to be very careful. All right, so let's talk about our high resolution forecast when all of this moves on through. Right now, we should be looking at a fairly decent weather forecast for the next hour or so further to the north. Areas up around Bryan College Station. As you get up towards Walker County, once that next storm moves on through, that should be the end of the night. Our Futurecast has been locked in fairly well through most of the night in terms of intensity, timing, and the duration of when these have moving through. So as we take it through about 11 o'clock, notice that's when it starts to press into Fort Bend County. So all of those areas that I mentioned just a minute ago will be under the gun possibility for not only 2 to 3, maybe 4 inches of rain, but we could be looking at additional severe thunderstorm warnings with those as well. As we take it to 12 o'clock, that now shifts its way in towards the greater Houston area, southward down in towards southeast Harris County, Friendswood, let's say, Pearland, for example. And then as we take it through 1 o'clock, that starts to shift a little further south, down the causeway, moving its way towards Galveston, Bolivar, over into Chambers County, and then down around El Campo. And then as we go through about 3 o'clock, notice that presses down in towards Bay City, Sweeney, Lake Jackson, moving on down towards Plashes, the Rockport area, into Matagorda Bay. Now, once that's all through, there's some leftover showers by about 5, 6 o'clock. But other than that, these should be light to moderate at best. Things will be soggy through the morning, but notice by 8 o'clock, we're pretty much done, and we should be A-okay as we take it through about 11:30. Once that's through, we'll see a much better looking forecast as we head in towards our Sunday. So I'm going to send it over to Anchor Sion Rhodes at the desk so we can get you set for the rest of our stories here at the top of the hour. Not only that, but we'll continue to watch that tornado warning as it is still active for the next 10 minutes. So let's go back and I'll show you what we've got with that tornado warning just to give you an indication of what we're seeing with there. So again, roads are going to be on the wet side. We'll keep a very close watch on that. Of course, those 2 flash flood warnings and our tornado warning, which is right there where you see that little swirl. That's the area that has the tornado warning. I've got a couple of extra watches on here. I'm going to continue to watch these very carefully. And let's take off those flood advisories because we are seeing heavy rain, but it does look like the storm is at least lessening its intensity to a degree. Now, if we jump in a little tighter on this, just to get you a sense of what we're seeing, and let me take these off so that you have an idea of what we've got. So it's basically right in and around Cyprus. If you're over towards Klein, Luetta, Deco, for example, south of Tomball between the 249 interchange and then moving out between 249 and the 99 Grand Parkway, that's where we're seeing some of the heaviest rain right now. So certainly keep a very close watch on any of those areas around Coralville. That's where we have our strongest storm. And this just came in from the National Weather Service, says the rotation is broader and weaker. That's good news, but still a healthy storm. Here we go. Going to let the tornado warning continue and decide what to do at expiration time. So basically they're saying, we're going to go ahead and let it go till 10:15. If we feel that we need to keep it going past 10:15, we will. If not, they will likely take that tornado warning down, may leave up that severe thunderstorm warning, and or may press it a little further to the east, so just south of the Woodlands there. And as I said, this is just one of a couple of different areas that we're watching very carefully. We also have a pretty good cluster. It looks like that's collapsing just a bit just to the north and west of Huntsville. So that's certainly good news. That's along State Route 19 and 75. And then, of course, that'll be anywhere from Dodge and Phelps. And then as you go a little further south and west of there, around Cold Spring to Lake Livingston, over to Shepherd, and then just south of there between Cut and Shoot and Cleveland, and right around Conroe, we've also got some heavy rain where they have already picked up 2 to 3 inches. Full totals that we've seen from this so far this evening. It has been fairly impressive just in the last 1 to 2 hours. Some of these storms have been able to drop close to about 1 inch to 1.5 inches of rain in some of those areas that have been hardest hit. And that's just on top of some of the other spots that have gotten anywhere from 2 to 3, 4 to 5 inches. But of course, the biggest part of the story that we've been watching so far this evening has been that tornado warning. It is as we mentioned, a radar indicated tornado warning. That does not mean that we have a radar on the ground, but it does mean that there is a chance that there is some rotation within that cloud structure, and that's what we've been seeing. If I'm going to move this over, give you a sense of what we've got there. You see just a little bit of coil with that green tries to impede with some of the red. And those are inbound and outbound winds on the radar setting that we're watching there. So I would guess if this was during the daytime, if there were folks out there on 99 looking either north or south or even along 290, you probably would be looking at a massive thunderstorm with a very low cloud deck, and there may be some little appendage or whatnot sticking out of the bottom that's trying to make it to the ground. That's not to say that that'll be the case, but an indication that we've still got some pretty strong thunderstorms that are accessing some areas. So further to the south, down around between Schulenburg and Hallettsville, we've been picking up close to 7 inches of rain. Next up, I think, for trouble in terms of the heavy rain potential will be this cluster that's now moving just south and west of Sealy. That'll be towards Eagle Lake. If you're in those areas right around 10 and Highway 36 there, right across the river. And then a little further to the south, notice that we still have some showers and thunderstorms that are starting to press in from Lake Jackson, Sweeney, on up into Alvin, Manville, Danbury. They'll be sliding their way up the 288 corridor. Bowling as well from Bay City. So just keep a heads up. The front will take a good chunk of the next 4 to 5 hours to press to the south as it does. That should give us an indication that we will still be looking at some pretty heavy showers and thunderstorms. But of course, the big story that we came on the air here at about 10 minutes before 10 o'clock, if you're just joining us and wondering where the regular newscast is, this is meteorologist Justin Stapleton. I'm over at the Weather Center here. We're driving the radar to give you an indication of what we've got. So we have one active tornado warning. This has been the first and only we've seen so far this evening. That goes until 10:15. Notice there's a severe thunderstorm warning attached to that as well, and a couple of flood advisories. Let me take those off just so we can clean this up. So we give you a sense and an indication of where exactly this storm will be headed over the next 10 to 15 minutes. If we kind of game this out, and let's take off those labels so you get a sense of what we've got. That'll press down in towards Katy at about 10:22, should put it towards the Cinco Ranch probably within the next 25 to 30 minutes. The whole cluster is moving at about 15 to 20 miles an hour. It's one of the reasons why we've seen those flash flood warnings this evening and some of those aerial flood advisories, because this has been very slow moving storms, unlike the last couple of cold fronts that have come through where they've just rocketed through here 40, 50 miles an hour. This this one will be a slow mover. And here's the deal. The slower it moves, the more rain it can dump on you and your property. So that's why we've been seeing some of these rainfall totals upwards of 4, 5, 6, 7 inches in some spots. And thus we've had some flash flood warnings as well. So that should press it in towards uptown Mission Bend into the greater Houston area by around 11:44, 11:45 or so. And that's right about when our Futurecast has timed that out. So let me back out and show you what that Futurecast shows if you're just joining us here. We showed that at the top of the hour, but to give you a sense of exactly what we're dealing with here, here's what it looks like. So notice that it actually is lined up fairly well with where the storms are. So if we take this and we put it through the next 30 minutes to about 11 o'clock, that presses most of the storms over across portions of Fort Bend County on down into much of greater Houston. Of course, the ones to the north and east are all moving their way over in towards Warren, Jasper, into the Tyler-Lufkin area, so thus out of the picture. Now, that also means that we could be looking at some broken line, any of these brighter colors that you see from Victoria over in towards, what is that, right outside of Sugar Land there, and then moving into northern Brazoria County. That could be a quick 2 to 3 inches of rain. That's what some of the biggest clusters have been dropping. But notice for folks on the north side here that have really been getting pounded the last 3 to 4 hours since about dinner time tonight should get a decent break. That should allow for things to drain down fairly quickly. Thankfully, we've been watching most of the creeks and bayous. And there's been a couple of spots that are close, but no major flooding that we've seen so far. It's been very isolated out there across much of the area. Now, as we take this from 1 o'clock to 2 to 3 o'clock, I'll stop it there. That's where I expect to see a lot of action down around the coast. So that could be anywhere from Bay City, Lake Jackson, Sweeney, as you get in towards Surfside Beach, for example, Galveston, Tiki Island, League City, Dickinson, towards NASA, Clear Lake. This is probably going to be all of you there in Southeast Harris County and northern Galveston County. And then by about 4 or 5 o'clock, we'll stop it right around then, that heaviest batch starts to move offshore. Now, there's going to be some wraparound showers, but I expect most of this by early tomorrow morning to be closer to we'll call it light to moderate rains, probably the best way to put that. And then as we go to about 8 o'clock, that all moves out of the way. As it does, we'll start to see some sunshine. That north wind is going to be a changer in terms of what we felt out there today, just how muggy it was. And we haven't even talked about the fact that we actually saw record-setting temperatures all across the area earlier today. I'll get into those details coming up here in just a couple of minutes, but we're about 10 seconds away from that tornado warning potentially expiring, and it does look like National Weather Service has allowed that to expire, so that's certainly good news, but it does give you an indication that we still have some pretty heavy showers and thunderstorms out there, and we will talk a lot more about this throughout the half hour here as well. So we'll have to see if we want to head it back over to the desk, or Erica, where would you like us to take this now? All right. I will send it back over to my friend and colleague, Sion Rhodes. We'll get you updated with President Biden, along with a lot of the other top news. And of course, I'll be back with the rest of your Futurecast, Sion, and a better looking Sunday forecast. And then tonight coming up here in just a bit.
Justin, give us a shout if you need to jump back in, okay?
Will do.
All right.